Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I would like to call the District Advisory Building Committee meeting to order. Today is a Thursday, February 17, 2022, and we are meeting via Zoom. I will take the roll. Councillor Mark Diane.
Present.
School Board Chair Emily Figdor.
Here.
Councillor April Fauner.
Here.
School Board Member Otto Russell Butter.
Here.
We do have DABC members. Matthew Winch. Is Matthew here?
Not yet.
Jessica Marino.
Here.
Abigail Fuller.
I don't see Abigail either.
Paul Stephen.
Here.
We also have district staff, CHA staff, and Herman staff. I just want to mention that we're missing members Sarah Thompson and Jay Norris. I think we do have everybody else here, so I will start out with approving the meeting. Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could I just, I believe that this is Councillor Fournier's first meeting with us, and so, sorry, let me go on camera.
Okay.
Sorry for my apron.
Oh,
I just want to welcome you, Councillor Fournier. Really appreciate your serving in this additional capacity on top of everything you do. These projects have been a labor of love, and we need your love and help to get them over the finish line. So welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
thank you,
Thank you.
Chair.
So glad to be here.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor April. I am also new to the role, so forgive me if I haven't welcomed you. All right, let's start with the approval of the meeting minutes from January 20, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Can you, I'm sorry, Chair, but we don't have those minutes yet, so we'll have to push them to the next meeting.
Okay, that would be great. All right, then we will go to the agenda. So tonight we're gonna get an update on how construction is going, and we're gonna dive in the work that we need to do. We're going to continue where we left last month, and we will have more details on the project impact and next steps. We're gonna talk about new work costs, schedule impacts, delay claim cost, and finally, we're gonna talk about source of funding. We are not going to make any decisions tonight. This is all continuing to build our understanding. When we have these numbers are fully and solidify, then we will have a conversation about how to fund it. But we're not quite there yet. We're going to do that to get full understanding of one of the potential places we can go to do the work that we need to do. So in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom so that we can get all of us the opportunity to speak. And with that being said, I will turn it over to the Herman team.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair Youssef. So I will share my screen. And hopefully everyone can see that.
We can.
Great. And so, as we discussed, our content of our meeting, just the first item is the meeting minutes, I think, went out late, so I'm not sure everyone had a chance to look at those. But so we can either table that to the next meeting, give people a chance to look at those. And then we're going to look at construction update. which is some images hot off the press of work that's been going on at the three schools, which is pretty exciting. So it's great to see that progress. And then we'll bring everyone up to speed, as was discussed, on the cost impacts to the work associated with permitting and delay costs, and so where we are with the status of that. So with that, we'll first look at Longfellow, and we'll kind of go from the list, and then we'll kind of describe each of the photos. So the elevator, right now, because the elevator has to go up against the existing foundation, we have to shore up the existing foundation, the soils that support it, and so that's going on right now. We've got on the two-story addition, the foundation walls are being framed for that and poured. So, and we'll describe that in a second here. We'll see that in the lower left picture. We have 4 classrooms that are going to be completed here, and that's very shortly, any day now, we're going to have the inspection with the city and get those turned over. And so that's pretty exciting. So we're seeing the classrooms come into to a shape, and then we've got steel supposed to arrive at the end of this month for the two-story addition as well. So so that's exciting. So the pictures, the lower left is the reinforcing bar. You can see that forms the wall. So you can, if you look in the background of that photo, you'll see where the painted retaining wall is, and that supports the soil of the courtyard. So this is where the extension is going. You can see where the plywood formwork is for the foundations too. So that concrete is going to be poured, and that reinforcing and that reinforced wall. The middle photo is the new casework in the classroom. So that's all new cubbies and storage, and so that's pretty exciting. And there's even where the old sink counters and cabinets were on the right hand side of that photo. You can see the new cabinets there as well. So that's great to see that installed. And then over on the far right, we have the instruction wall, the new instruction wall with it shows where we've got the whiteboards and the boxes for the AV instructional equipment for that. And so what we don't see right now is what we'll have for all new ceiling and lighting. And then the flooring. The flooring is actually arriving a little bit later. Just one of the various aspects of materials that take a while to get, and in particular in today's construction world, it seems like there's a supply chain issue with everything. So, but the flooring is going to be a little bit late getting there. The city has suggested that's not going to hold us up with the opportunity to turn those spaces over. So. I'll pause for a second before we move to the next project. If there are any questions.
Yes, I see Jessica Morin has a question. Go ahead, Jessica.
So is there just temporary flooring and we're going to be able to put furniture on that for now? Because you said these are the classrooms they're moving into over vacation.
Yeah, so that's the idea is that we're going to make that the flooring temporary, and I don't, right now it may be that we have the contractor clean that up, but I don't believe we're intending to put down a flooring and then take the flooring back up. So and it's not going to be a long delay to get the flooring. So. Okay, I'll move to Reiki. The foundations are complete for the administration addition, the front addition, and also for the stair tower additions. So, we've got site drainage catch basins, which are the structures that the water flows into, and culverts installed, and that's in that area in the front. The drywall on the interior renovation is nearly, for the phase that we're on, is nearly complete, and then the contractor is getting ready to put the steel up on the admin addition, and so that's exciting to see that. So the photos show the lower left is the admin addition in the front, the foundation for it, and it's been backfilled, and so we're again waiting for the steel to show up for that, and we'll see how that new piece is going to frame out. The middle picture is the stair, the two-story stair tower that gets tucked into the corner of the to the right of the current entrance, and so You can see where that is, and there's a door that exits out from that is right in the front of it. So you can see a little piece of blue in the foundation wall. That's where the slab, the structural slab is for the door. And then what I find to be the exciting part is the photo to the right, where we actually have what is a corridor at Reiki. And so with what you can see is a lot of sound insulation in the wall. So that's going to help the acoustics in those spaces tremendously. So that's pretty exciting to see that coming together. So that's going to be quite a transformation of that space. And so again, what this doesn't show are the ceilings and lighting and flooring that will go down on that space. But we're really seeing that move along. So that's exciting on the interior. So I'll pause for a second and I'll move on.
Emily has a question. Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you so much, Chair Youssef. Mark, can you just orient me to what? So I'm looking, I'm trying to figure out what corridor this is. And so if it's yeah, it's fun not to know.
Yeah.
It's so the old art room.
Yeah, exactly. We're up if you were looking at our drawings, we're kind of in the upper right-hand corner that as we've been viewing those plans on the second floor for the long time.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions before we move to the second part? All right.
Okay. And
maybe just real quickly, I got to visit the Longfellow construction earlier this week or at the end of last week. I don't remember exactly when. And the thing that Principal Young is most excited about is all of the electrical outlets.
No more extension cords everywhere.
That's great.
We set a low bar.
You set it low enough, people can,
So great. And then our third project update for the subject for the excavation for it says for the under slab plumbing is underway. So and you can see all those white pipes that are poking up in the photos, and that's the middle photo shows where the excavation is held, so where the piping goes down from the floor level down, or even from in walls down into below the slab, and then and so the digging for that has been underway. We have the piping for the under slab plumbing and so the bathroom areas that we have that we're adding, and the plumbing that we were showing over in the small kitchen that we have as well. So that's and then roof drainage. So that piping has been installed and it gets pressure tested, and then we backfill the soil underneath the slab. We are now excavating and forming the interior column piers. So those are where the structural columns will go down and be supported. And a excavation for the very last section of the east wall. So they left it open in order to be able to get access to the area that they're working, and then the very last section gets formed and poured as well. Preparing for steel delivery as the next big critical path item. So we're almost at the same place on all of them, where we've got steel coming shortly here, and so this one is moving along nicely as well. We can see the extent of a lot of the slab prep in the photo to the far right, which is you can see the extent of the addition going out in the back of the building. So again, I'll pause.
All right. School board member Aurora Savara has a question. Go ahead, Al.
Well, thank you, Chair Youssef. Mark, can you just clarify what the product submittals means?
Oh, sure, absolutely, yeah. So on the projects as they get underway at the very beginning, the contractor is required to submit the products that they're installing in the project itself. So there's product information on everything from the electrical equipment or the infrastructure that they're doing to the finishes to everything. So we require them to submit that, and we review it to make sure that that meets the specification, the intent of what we've designed. And then we review it and then provide that feedback to the contractor. So it's a checks and balance on the products to make sure that they are meeting the specifications. So
Okay, thank you. And then the steel delivery, you said that's just like kind of the issue all around, that it's just the availability and just having to wait. So that seems...
Yeah, I think we're in good shape. There hasn't been, in terms of phasing from going from the concrete, the foundations to the steel. It's just a natural progression. So we are waiting. Just there's still work going on. It's not like they're staying there, but it's that's a whole process of getting that approved as well, and getting the delivery on site. So that is obviously a big part of what we call that critical path, which is what has to take a sequential order in order for the project to be completed in a timely fashion.
And I'm sorry, were those also in the two other projects? I don't remember if the steel piece specifically, is that an issue?
Yeah, that was identified. So yeah, I think I'll kind of go back so you can see that right now the contractor is preparing to erect the steel and start the concrete block work. So we're at the same place. The stair tower on this one is built out of concrete block units, not steel, but the addition in the front is built out of steel framing. And then on this one, as soon as so it says that that very last item, that the steel for the addition is scheduled to arrive at the end of February here. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Board Member Otto. Any other questions? All right. Go ahead, Mark.
Very good. So the next thing is an update on where we are with respect to the project impacts. And as we brought forward some of the information the last meeting, we've got a few updates to it. So the first one is the new work cost, and we explained what new work was last time, and a lot of it is associated with the permitting process that we went through, and the new work that was a result of feedback from the city and what they were asking for the project. So. And Longfellow, a lot of it was right around the bathrooms. We talked about that. Reiki, it had to do with some of the bathrooms and the 2-story space at the library, center of the school. And Przumska had to do with the energy code upgrades. So, and so right now, where we're at is the first column that you see on the pricing side is the initial claim, and that was what the contractor supplied for their cost for that new work. And then the process of review of that by both CHA, Harriman, and the owner is to vet out, make sure that we're receiving a fair price for things and that we understand the same quantities and amount of time for the work to be done and cost for that. And so that current status of Longfellow is at $41,000 plus or minus. So it's come down a little bit, and I think most of that's attributed to discussion about the markups, what we call their markups, the overhead and profit that they're allowed on a change, and working with them to find a mutually agreeable amount for those markups. The second one is that Reiki. The initial claim was $225. We're still, I think, working through some of that. And the current status is $251,000 for that. And then Przumska, the initial claim was $139 for that new work associated with the energy code primarily. This is the breakdown, and we provided this breakdown the last time too. So this is just an update of where those costs came from with respect to the new work. So. I'll pause before I move, but like I said, this it's very very similar to the information we shared the last time. So.
I do have a question on when those with the parentheses, that means we haven't still finalized.
No, it's a good question, Youssef. Those in parentheses mean that we are getting a credit for that work. So some things are added and some things are a deduct. The adds are shown without the parentheses, and the deductions are shown with the credits are shown with the parentheses. So it's the net of all of that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Whether you raise your hand.
And so this amount, I think, was listed at, I think we're at 225,000 last time. So I think it's gone up a little bit in terms of some of the original estimated cost by about $25,000. And so, and again, I think we're still going through and having conversations with Hardy Pond on some of these values, but this gives you an update of where we're at right now.
I can chime in, Mark. Also, just for everyone's knowledge, the number did go up because initially they provided just a kind of rough order of magnitude, and then when they actually submitted the claim with all the subcontractor backup, this is where the number really was. But we're in the process of vetting that number and talking with Hardy Pond.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, and Laura, on all of these, if I miss something, please chime right in, and others as well. And with Presumpscot, we didn't put the parentheses around two of the values they're erroneously shown as part of adding to the total on the last update that we provided everyone. So these ones now account for the fact that those were credits in those two areas: demolition that we didn't have to do, and some concrete slab repair that we also didn't have to do as a result of this. And so there's credits on those, and they're that's adjusted the total.
Guys, okay. I see. So go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair Youssef. Mark, could you just clarify the markup? Is that like inflation, or what is?
No, that's exactly that. I alluded to that, and so the contractor is allowed to, when they put the pricing together, they have the sort of base cost of what the materials and their labor is going to be, but they also have a cost for supervision, for their bonding, their insurance on the project. So they have a markup for all of the stuff that they have to carry to be on site to do the work. And so it's not simply just the cost of the construction and materials and labor. Also, they have a ability to and they assume a cost for it, and so they pass that on as well. So that's the markup. It's and there's a small percentage for profit, for overhead, and so that's that component.
So is that something that's estimated before, but then this is in actuality what it ends up being?
Yeah, well, it's so the contract reads that they're allowed a reasonable amount up to a certain percentage, and so what we have done is come to a mutually agreeable what we think that percentage amount that is reasonable is. And so on some projects, on the state projects, it can be as high as 20% that markup.
Okay, thanks. And then Mark, I just thought of this other question I had, which is I know the code, we talked about that last time, and so I understand that because electrical is obviously the big one
right
here at Presumpscot, but am I remembering, I thought that plumbing was like, at one point that was did that change? Did that amount go down at all, or am I just misremembering?
I'll have to go back and take a look. I don't think the plumbing did. I know, again, the 94,000 was the big lion's share of this, and that was, as we discussed, a lot of the circuiting that we had to do for that.
Okay. I think I just was remembering some, and maybe it was just the small amount about plumbing that we were not expecting, but it sounds like there wasn't a change from our last meeting about the plumbing piece. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Otto Russell. Councillor April Founder, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. This is great, and think it helps kind of ground where everything's at. I'm just curious about the tile changes. Is that like truly was just like tile changes? Like I wanted blue and we were out of blue, so now we have to go with brown.
Yeah, and April, I'll have to dig into specifically what that tile change, unless Laura knows off the top of her head what that tile change referred to.
Yeah, I can tell you. So because we made plumbing changes on the projects, that affected the tile in the bathroom. So it wasn't a matter of like picking a different color or something. It was like a combination of reducing the amount of tile and adding more tile. So
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor April. Councillor Mark Diane, go ahead, please.
Mark, it's a question for you and your team. I just want to tease out this idea of the markups. Is there a way that we can distinguish, allocate those costs as between product and labor? I mean, sometimes look, is that possible?
Yeah, they did provide us that backup. So part of their backup shows exactly what the cost for the construction materials and labor are, and then they show us what that breakout of the markup is. And so that markup of 11.65% is based on the subtotal provided by on the materials and the labor. Does that answer that, Mark?
Well, I get that, but I think if I was in another forum and I had to explain the increase in cost, it would be helpful, simplistic, but $250,000 or $500,000 increase in construction costs, 40% of that had to do with labor and whatever drove that labor cost upwards, whether it was the delay or other types of issues, and 60% with natural inflation in accessing the product and anything that complicates that. Because when I look at $139,000, I don't know if that's come from tiles or the technicians that actually install the tile. What's the proportion?
Oh, yeah, right, absolutely. Yeah, so and it may be helpful again if we would share maybe the backup for that. So what you're right. So for instance, the electrical change on that, the subcontractor submits, and they have a detailed takeoff of all of the electrical boxes and conduit and things like that. And then they also have a listing of what the labor costs are, and that exact percentage is different on the different line items. And so that percentage difference, we can find that backup information if that's helpful.
Well, that'd be helpful. I don't know if it's helpful to the other members of the committee, but it helps me assess what a markup truly represents. So if you can do that with your team, Mark, I know I would appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, we can give you. Yeah, we can show you how the contractor arrives at those values. I think.
I was muted. So thank you, Councillor Mark Diane, and we are going to Member Paul Stevens. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Mark. I may have missed this from a previous meeting, but can you tell me a little bit more what occasioned the $94,000 electrical extra?
Yeah. Also, the IECC 2021 requires that the branch circuits in the classrooms or have half of those circuits on vacancy sensors. And so it ended up that we had to provide far more circuits and controls to be able to meet that requirement.
Is that because you guys weren't aware of the code update, or the plans were prepared before the code update, Mark?
Precisely. That's exactly what it was. That the plans were prepared before that enactment in the middle of the summer. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Paul. Any other questions for Mark? I think I see none. Yeah, you go ahead, please.
Right. And so this, again, has I don't believe it's changed substantially from our last update, which is that Longfellow right now, it's looked at a 4-month delay that this is to our knowledge at this point. So what that does is it pushes the completion out to December of 2023. And so and then there's some work that will have to happen in the summer of 2024. So that's it will wait until the better weather. And then Reiki, I'm not sure if we had some sense of what that duration was last time, because that's been the one that we've been working on the most to try to nail that down and work with them on the schedule. But we're looking at about a 4-month delay on the Reiki project, which pushes it to December 2023 completion, similar to Longfellow. And Presumpscot is about a 5-month delay that pushes out till January 11th. We actually have a new adjusted completion date and so that's that kind of frames part of the conversation with the contractors regarding how much longer it's going to take and how much additional cost it's going to take them because of that delay.
Any questions? I see none. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. So then this is the other one that's been the one that originally we had hoped to find out what these costs were going to be. This goes all the way back to, I think, October, November, that we were hoping to get this information by the end of the year. We've been working hard to try to get as much of it with the contractors nailed down as we can. And so this is for those delays that we just explained on the previous slide. This is what we have for the contractor's cost for that delay. The initial claim is what the contractor originally put forward. And then the initial claim was revised on the case of Longfellow. And then the current status is where we are at with our discussions with them. And so I'll actually, I'll open up to Laura to go through this. Laura's been much more closely in the conversations with the contractor on these costs.
Yeah, so I can tell you on Longfellow, we've had several discussions starting off with their initial claim, and when they submitted the initial claim of $707,000, we first gave some high-level comments about the duration, that they were extending the schedule and fees, and they came back, and that's why they came back with the $630,000. And then we came back with a lot more thorough responses on all the subcontractor backup and winter conditions, staff charges. So that's why we came to the 580 currently. And now next week we'll be talking with them about hopefully arriving at a final status after some further discussions on that 580 number. On Reiki, the initial claim was really, again, it was like a rough order of magnitude. It was just kind of a high-level number presented to us without any backup. The number that came over with backup is that current status number, which has gone to Harriman and CHA to provide comments, and we provided a bunch of feedback on that claim. And so it's back with the contractor now to take another look at their number. We had a lot of comments on that, looking at how they can revise it, and some overtime that was included in the numbers that we didn't really feel should be. So we're waiting to see what they come back to us with. And then Presumpscot, we had an initial claim of, you can see here, it was 121 plus 20% for the markups. And we spoke with them a few times, and the final amount that we came to was $98,500.
So the total of the current status of and/or final claim right now is about 1.5 million for the delays, as a sum for all three of these schools. So that's the right now current amount. We're still working obviously with the contractors to understand, to validate those costs and work through that process. It's been made slower. Everything seems to be slower now, but there's a challenge of trying to get the information back and forth from our side to the contractor, the general contractor. Then the general contractor has to talk to their subcontractors, and then so there's sometimes a lot of back and forth that has to happen, and a lot of that is just takes a while, and that's contributing to again just us trying to push this and get this resolved.
Mark, I want to pose you to take question from Emily Factor. Go ahead, Chair Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Youssef. Just to, Laura, I just wanted to make sure I understood. Is the level of detail that it sounds like CHA and Harriman have provided in terms of feedback to the general contractor on Longfellow, has that same level of detail happened yet on Reiki?
It has, yes. It's been this is the first round of that. When we finally got the backup we were looking for and the 824 number, we did provide that thorough response to the contractor for them to then take that and go look at their numbers and then also go back to the subs and revisit, what our feedback was. So that's currently where we're at right now. But yes, we are in that kind of real detailed analysis stage right now.
Okay, thank you so much. And Ju, can you give me and I'm sorry to ask you this, but can you give a sense if that $825,000 number is likely to come down significantly, or you think that's?
My expectation would be that I guess it would depend on how we define significant, but I would expect it to come down. I would say it's significant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Victor. Any other questions for the team?
So the question, and I think Chair Youssef, you started by the conversation tonight saying we're not determining how that delta is going to be funded at this point. We're beginning that conversation about what the available funds left in the bond are in order to be able to cover what the delay costs are going to be. And so this slide just shows us right now where we have funds in the bond, and some of those are earmarked for other things. Some of them are surplus from the previous project license. So I'll kind of go through each of those. Again, we're not talking about decisions on any of this, but we can have this is the beginning of a conversation on it. So there was project funds left over from the Lyseth project in the amount of approximately $400,000. So there's still a few things that right now the current remaining is 453, but there's still a few remaining loose ends that are going to be funded through that. So we feel comfortable that there's a earmark of approximately $400,000 from that budget that will not be spent on the Lyseth project. So the next line item is the construction contingencies that currently haven't been spent on the projects. That's the budget line item that we carry for all those unforeseen conditions and for changes that come up during construction. So were we to wipe this out, it would leave us with the inability to pay for changes that might come up. I wouldn't think that, don't think of that number as being a source of, we could use all that, because we will need it. As you can see on the projects, we're just at the point of steel going up on some of these. And so there's still a long way to go on these. And so there's still going to need to be a contingency, a construction contingency. So, but that's the amount right now we have that hasn't been spent on the construction contingency. The next item is the amount that we had.
Mark, would I
yeah,
pose
I'll
you
pause.
to
Yep.
take questions?
Please, sorry.
I lost the order, but I will start with Superintendent Botan, and then we go with Aura.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mark, that current amount remaining, is that is there a separate amount for each of the schools? Is that can you explain that to everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you. So what we did, each school has its own budget sheet, and we've sort of looked at that as a committee at various points in the process. And that on that budget sheet, we had the contingency broken down into two different line items. One was for the bidding contingency that it was intended to accommodate any fluctuation in the market condition. The other and that was 5%, and there was 5% also for the construction contingency. So it was 5% of the estimated construction cost that we established at the outset of the project. So this total of 1.373 is the sum of what it's the sum of all three schools' contingencies. So this doesn't show the breakdown, but there's a different value for each school. There's also a different percentage that's been spent right now because some of the contingencies have been spent on each of the three schools. So some of them have had more changes and some of them have had less changes. So this is simply the total that hasn't been spent of the all three contingencies.
Okay. Board Member Ottawa, so go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just following up on the superintendent's question, Mark, and I apologize if you answered this, I don't think so, but so would we, as in this committee, have the license to, could those amounts be moved to other buildings as needed, just kind of as we've had to in other situations make decisions about, like, is that something that would be simple?
Yeah, I think that the idea is that in the past, what we've done is looked at this committee to make recommendations about how the funds may shift from one, because it's all one bond to cover all four construction projects.
Okay, thanks. And my other question was just, I appreciated you explaining the contingency, the purpose, because of course, that knowing that we very much might need that would give me pause to think about using any of that. But I guess my question for you is just if you could give any examples, like you mentioned the steel, so would that often be for increased cost of materials, or could you just give another example of what in the typical project, like, what might be other instances that would come up?
Absolutely. So there's a number of things. So in a renovation, oftentimes there are conditions behind walls that you don't know it's there until they start taking things apart. And so if it requires some additional work, so that, for instance, if we encountered some plumbing or something that happened to be in a wall that we had to move, and then the cost of doing that would something that the contractor did not see on the drawings, and so it hadn't been priced in their original bid. So they would ask for a change in cost to do that. So
okay,
sometimes
so that could be labor and materials if there was
correct.
Okay,
yeah, absolutely, yep.
Okay, and then is this amount that's so can you give a guess? You said we did use some of this already in each of the projects.
Correct.
Can you remind me what was the original contingency at the beginning of?
I do. I'd have to go back and take a look. But what we would do is if we took the bid values of the contractor bids for all three schools and we added them and took 5% of it, that's what that would be. I don't know. We can report on that on the next.
It was more just my trying to get my head around, like, have we really used a good chunk already? And I'm sure it's just you can't really guess what might come up, right? So.
That's the thing. On Lyseth, we were able to cover our all the changes within the contingency that we had, the 5%.
Okay, that's helpful to know. I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was used in the whole of the Lyseth project. The amount that had been put aside for contingency did end up being used. So
Yeah, Laura, do you have what those totals might be right now?
I don't have the total offhand right now.
that's okay.
But
Thank you. It's just
I can
my
tell you though,
understanding. Yeah.
I can tell you though that especially on Longfellow, we're going through that contingency at a faster rate than we would like to.
Yeah.
So it's definitely funding that we're showing as a source here, but it's there for a reason.
Yeah. Thank you. Just it's helpful for me to just get the context of what that's for and how it's being used. So those examples were helpful. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Otto. Do we have any other questions for Mark and the team?
So the last line shown here is the 2.2 million for, it says FFE, and that's primarily furniture. That's kind of the and technology. So there are some aspects of technology that's purchased with that. So it stands for furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. But so that's the FFE. But so that number right now hasn't been spent. We know we will need to spend some of that. So that's not as if somehow we can just use all of that either. I think one of the in a similar fashion in terms of thinking about what we spent at LISATH, we spent about half of what we had allocated, because originally when the budgets are created, it's just a percentage of a construction cost that we create that allocation. Right now, we're actually going through and doing an estimate of what we think it's going to cost for furniture for the 3 projects. So it'll give us a sense of what we really think we're going to have to spend on that and what we may have available in that line item to be able to cover some of the costs. So, and like I said, I think it was around 50% of the allocation that we spent at LISATH.
I see Board Member Otto Russell has a question. Oh.
Well, thank you, Chair. Mark, I appreciate that you're going through and trying to make the estimate. I guess I'm just wondering, thinking of the period of LISATH versus now with inflation, how much more than 50% might end up being used for these. So do you have a guess of when you might have that estimate for us to just see if that number is going to change?
Yeah, we're actively working on that. So actually, I think we're going to have that pretty soon because what we're doing is we have some pretty clear understanding of what the price is with the price increase, and so we can estimate what that amount will be.
Okay, great. And it really is. So it's the furniture and technology. So there's really just those fixed items. There isn't anything else in there that would be labor, or is there? I mean,
no, right, exactly. It's getting vendor pricing. So getting a vendor price for when we go out to bid for the furniture, they'll provide us a price for delivering and installing the furniture.
Oh, delivering and installing. Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, School Board Member. Or go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you. So I'm just wondering, do we have the flexibility if we're looking at the furnishing and equipment budget to kind of prioritize what we definitely need at the schools, not spend it all at once in case we need it, some of it for the 1.5 million, but then if there's contingency left over at the end, buy what we weren't able to buy?
Yeah, I think, Jessica, that's going to be sort of, I think we'll know the delta of the 1.5 and how much we're going to need to potentially use, because that has to be resolved in some ways. It has to be resolved before we get to the point of purchasing all of the furniture. So I think to your point, yes, I think that will be an understanding of a prioritization exercise of exactly how much we can, and then as more funds are available, you may be able to do more.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Jessica. Now we go with Chair Figdor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Youssef. This is like purely out of curiosity, so sorry to ask, but so for instance, the classrooms that we're able to move into at Longfellow over the February break, I assume we're using existing furniture, and then the new furniture and technology is something that happens at the end?
Correct. Yeah. Emily, that we're not putting new furniture in the classrooms yet. That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Victor. Any other questions for Mike and the team? Okay.
I do have the answer to the question that was asked about where we started off with the contingency. It was 1.868.
So I think if someone does the math, it's probably somewhere around 35-40% that we spent more. I think that.
Any other questions? Thank you, Laura. I see Board Member Ora. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Chair Youssef. I just had a process question about, I was thinking what Jessica brought up about, our role in helping to prioritize for the buildings, what might be the needs. So I'm just trying to figure out how this, so would it be kind of our next meeting that we're taking some steps about sources of funding? I'm just thinking about when would it kind of go potentially back to the BLAC committees to maybe discuss within those school communities what we prioritize. I don't know if Superintendent, you could help us with that.
I mean, I think that's a great question. I think we need to get the final number to where we know that that's what it's, what our.
Hope you're muted.
Right, and then we will come back to the DABC for discussion on that. I don't know that is a resource allocation decision. I think if we were in a place where we were looking at scope changes, we would go back to the 3-school BLAC. But in this particular case, we're really looking at where where from this pool of resources we would be finding that is ultimately a resource allocation decision that the board will need to make. And this is the group that advises the board on those issues. So I'm not saying, I think if you felt that you wanted to get feedback from the schools on that, that the BLAC would be the place to do that. But I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, I guess it really depends on the numbers anyway. So once we know that further, we would know if we needed to get that specific and reductions. So, okay, thank you.
And just while I have the floor on this, I mean, I think it's safe, and I'm making this as an assertion, and it really is a question. So I think it's safe to say that the $400,000 that's left over from the LISEF project and the total amount remaining from the bids, that is the place that we would start at, and that the decisions really are, about whether or not to tap the contingency. And I think, for transparency's sake, for, this group to understand what's been spent out of that contingency on what, and then, to, make a decision between that and the FFE resources, right? Is that a fair sort of sequencing of those things? To the Harriman and Laura.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I think that's the the area that we'd look as soon as we settle that number down. The one way of looking at it is that if you were to take it from the contingency and then you ran out of contingency and you still had costs that you incurred, you'd have to then take it again from the FFE. So it's one pot of money. So I think the idea, we can kind of sort through that as we make those decisions. But the likelihood is that if you assigned it or you took it from the FFE, it works the other direction too. If you don't spend all of your contingency, then you could certainly use those funds to purchase furniture or technology.
Great, thanks. And then I did want to point out, I apologize, I don't see Emily on my screen, but while we were in the meeting, I did look at my email and I did get the minutes from her. So I have updated those to the agenda for today. So I apologize, Emily, that I said that I hadn't gotten them because you did.
Oh, that's okay. They were late. We'll review them for next time.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you, Emily. And thank you, Member Aura. Any other questions? Oh, I do have one last question, if you can go back. So the bid contingency is already used, right?
Correct.
Already.
Yeah, absolutely. Those were used and resettled after we open up the bids for each of the projects.
Oh, thank you so much. Any other questions for the team? I think.
Can I just real quick, can you put that screen back up? So isn't the 581 remaining from the bid contingency?
That actually, so that's interesting that it's labeled remaining from bid results. That really was the surplus that we had when we totaled up all of the project's budget sheets. Remember, we had this outstanding, and that's really what that is. So it's not really the remaining from the bid results, but I think it was at the end of the bid results, we still had from the budgets that surplus. That's been kind of carried at the project level, not at each of the individual school budgets. And so that's exactly what that is. Thank you, Superintendent. That's a clarification.
Thank you, Superintendent, for that. And any other questions? All right. Mark, are you done?
So just the last slide is that we've got our next meeting for this group will be in a month, March 17th. And so it'll be warmer and sunnier at that time, we hope, and longer days. So, and there'll be a lot more construction progress to share too. That's the other great part of that. And then we will not have the February BLAC meeting because it's next week during school vacation. So what we'll do is update folks, but we'll have our next scheduled BLAC the week after our next DABC. So, and that ends the presentation there. So,
thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, Emily, Laura, and the whole team. Any other final question before we adjourn or discussion? All right, I think we're ready to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
First Emily, and second Aura. All in favor, please indicate showing your hand. Thank you so much. Again, our next meeting is going to be March 17, 2022 at 6 p.m. And I think we all thank you, everybody, and have a great night.